He stepped into the softly lit restaurant, the warm glow of Christmas lights reflecting on the polished floor. Outside, snow swirled in slow, graceful patterns, covering the city in a quiet hush that made everything seem calm and still. People hurried by with bundled scarves and gloved hands, laughing, talking, carrying gifts. Inside, the atmosphere was different. There was warmth, laughter, the smell of roasted food and sweet pastries in the air, and a sense of joy that seemed to belong to everyone but him. He walked past tables full of families and couples, all immersed in the soft music and conversation of the evening, their laughter, the sparkle in their eyes, the gentle teasing of children. Everything seemed to highlight the stark emptiness of his own life. He wore a finely tailored suit, the kind of outfit that made people recognize him without needing an introduction. Yet tonight that recognition felt hollow. Money, power, success, they had not shielded him from the loneliness that seemed to follow him everywhere. He chose a table in the far corner, away from the noise, where he could watch without being watched. He pulled out his chair and sat, placing his leather briefcase on the floor beside him. He ordered a simple meal, knowing that the taste of fine food mattered less than the silence it would come with. He did not mind eating alone. It was a habit he had cultivated over the years. The CEO world demanded long hours, and over time, personal connections had been replaced with emails, contracts, and endless meetings. As he waited for his food, he looked around. The restaurant was decorated for Christmas, with garlands of green and gold wrapped around the pillars, tiny lights twinkling like distant stars, and a small tree in the corner adorned with red and silver ornaments. The decorations should have made him smile, should have given him a sense of celebration, but instead, they felt like a spotlight on his own solitude. A group of children at the next table laughed as they passed a small gift to each other. One of them, a girl with bright eyes and a curious expression, caught his gaze. She noticed him sitting alone and tilted her head slightly, as if considering a question she had not yet asked. There was a simplicity in her look, a purity that reminded him of something he could not quite name, something he had forgotten long ago. The waiter brought his meal, and he nodded silently, offering a polite but brief smile. He did not have the energy for small talk. He was used to commanding rooms, making people respond to his voice, and yet tonight, he wanted nothing more than to disappear into the background, to let the world continue around him without requiring him to participate. He picked at his food, tasting it mechanically, noting the flavors but not savoring them. His mind wandered back to the office, to the endless stack of reports waiting for his signature, to meetings he could not postpone, to the phone calls that never stopped. Success had built a golden cage around him, one where comfort and achievement existed, but freedom and joy did not. Outside, the snow continued to fall, layering the streets in white, softening the edges of the city. He imagined walking home through it, feeling the cold bite at his cheeks, the quiet pressing against his ears, but even that image did not stir warmth within him. Loneliness had become a familiar companion, more constant than any friend or family member. As he looked around the restaurant again, he noticed families sharing stories over dessert, holding hands, exchanging smiles and laughter. There was a man with a small boy, both wearing matching scarves, and the boy's eyes sparkled as he recounted something he had learned at school. A couple at another table clinked glasses, their eyes filled with affection that spoke of years spent together. Every glance, every smile, every touch was a reminder of something he had never prioritized, something he had traded for boardroom victories and business deals. He sighed and leaned back in his chair, resting his hands on the table. The restaurant's music changed to a soft carol, familiar but distant, and he hummed along quietly to himself, almost unconsciously. Music had a way of evoking memories, of opening doors to emotions that he had long ignored. He remembered Christmases as a child, simpler times when warmth was found not in wealth but in togetherness. He remembered a grandmother's smile, a father's laugh, a mother's gentle scolding. Those faces were gone now, scattered across the years and miles, and he felt the ache of absence. He glanced again at the little girl from earlier. She had returned to her seat but kept looking over at him. There was a confidence in her that seemed unbound by the rules adults lived by. She did not see a CEO. She did not see a man defined by success or isolation. She saw a human being, someone who belonged somewhere, someone who deserved kindness and warmth. He felt an unexpected pull in his chest, a stirring of curiosity and, strangely, hope. The meal continued slowly, each bite taken with mechanical precision, each sip of wine tasteless without company. He noticed the decorations on the table, a small candle, a sprig of holly, and he realized that even small gestures of care could bring a sense of comfort. He thought about the lives outside these walls, about people he had met, people he had ignored, people he had forgotten. And he thought about the little girl again, wondering what it was about her that made his heart feel lighter, even if only slightly. He finished his meal in near silence, signaling the waiter to bring the check. As he reached for his wallet, he felt a small tap on his shoulder. He turned and saw the little girl standing there, holding a piece of paper, her eyes bright and hopeful. "Do you want to have dinner with us?" she asked, her voice soft but full of warmth. Her innocence and boldness struck him in a way he could not explain. The question hung in the air, simple yet profound, offering a bridge across the gap he had built around himself. He blinked, unsure how to respond. The family at the next table smiled encouragingly, the parents nodding gently. The room felt warmer all of a sudden, as if the question had shifted the atmosphere, as if a door he thought was permanently closed had been nudged open. For a moment he saw not a stranger or an intruder, but an opportunity to experience connection, to feel belonging, to let the walls he had built fall away, even just for a night. The little girl's hand remained outstretched. The paper she held a drawing of a Christmas tree and gifts, colorful and cheerful. She did not push, did not demand, but simply offered companionship in its purest form. And for the first time in a long time he felt a warmth spreading through him, quiet but undeniable. The loneliness that had seemed permanent, a shadow cast over every holiday and every success, began to feel less absolute. He took a slow breath, considering the offer, feeling the simplicity and honesty of the gesture. There was no judgment, no expectation, no ambition, just a little girl extending kindness, reminding him of a truth he had long forgotten, that human connection mattered more than anything else. He nodded slowly, a small smile forming, and the little girl's face lit up. She ran ahead, pulling him gently toward the table where her family sat, and for the first time in years, he walked into something that felt like warmth, like home, like Christmas. The little girl ran ahead, tugging his hand lightly as he followed, unsure at first but curious. Her family's table was in the middle of the restaurant, a place full of warmth, chatter, and laughter. She pulled him into a chair next to her, and the parents welcomed him with gentle smiles, polite but inviting. The father nodded slightly, and the mother offered a quiet, understanding smile that made him feel, for the first time in a long while, seen rather than just observed. The girl's eyes sparkled with excitement, and she handed him the drawing she had made, a colorful Christmas tree surrounded by gifts. He looked at it carefully, seeing the effort, the care, and the joy in every stroke. It was simple, innocent, and yet it touched something deep inside him. He placed it on the table in front of him, feeling an unexpected warmth creeping into his chest. He hesitated for a moment, unsure how to begin a conversation with strangers. He had spent so many years speaking with purpose, negotiating, giving orders, that normal, heartfelt conversation felt foreign. The little girl, however, ignored his hesitation. She began to tell him stories about her day, about school, about Christmas decorations, and about the snow outside. She spoke with a natural charm, her words filled with curiosity and wonder, and he found himself listening intently, hanging on every detail. Her parents watched silently, letting their daughter take the lead. The father, a quiet man with gentle eyes, made small jokes, occasionally glancing at the CEO, showing that it was okay to relax and be part of the moment. The mother served slices of cake, placing one in front of him without a word, her actions more welcoming than any sentence could be. The simple act of sharing dessert, of being included in their Christmas celebration, made him feel a warmth he had long forgotten. As the little girl talked, he noticed her gestures, the way she leaned forward eagerly, the way her eyes lit up with every story she told. He began to respond, first in small phrases, then in short stories from his own past. He spoke of childhood memories, of snowball fights, of homemade decorations, and of the excitement of Christmas mornings. He realized that he had not shared these memories with anyone in decades, and it felt strangely freeing to speak without an agenda, without expectation, without judgment. The restaurant hummed around them, a blend of soft music, clinking dishes, and gentle conversation, but within the little circle at the table, Time seemed to slow. The CEO laughed quietly at one of the girl's tales about a mischievous classmate. She laughed along with him, delighted to have a companion in her storytelling. The parents watched, their expressions soft, understanding that this brief encounter was more than a meal. It was a connection bridging years of solitude. He noticed small details about the family: the mother's careful way of arranging the plates, the father's subtle gestures of encouragement, the little girl's constant curiosity. Each detail reminded him of what he had missed in his own life, the human moments that could not be bought or negotiated. He felt a pang of regret, realizing that the pursuit of success had cost him not just relationships but simple joys like these. As the evening went on, conversation flowed more naturally. He asked questions about the girl's school, her favorite activities, her dreams. She answered eagerly, her excitement infectious. He found himself smiling more genuinely than he had in years, feeling the stress and rigidity of his life melt slightly with every laugh. Every story, every shared moment of wonder. The family shared small traditions, like singing a quiet carol together and exchanging a modest gift. The girl insisted he join in, and though he felt awkward at first, he found joy in participating. His voice was hesitant at first, then grew steadier, harmonizing with the family's laughter and song. He realized that joy was not about grandeur or perfection. It was about connection, about being present and engaged with others. At one point, the little girl reached for his hand and led him to a small ornament on the table, explaining that it was meant to symbolize kindness and sharing. She encouraged him to place it on the tiny Christmas tree in the restaurant, and he did so, feeling a strange but comforting sense of belonging. The simple gesture, guided by a child's innocence, broke down walls he hadn't known were still standing. He noticed glances from other diners, some curious, some smiling at the unexpected scene. But he did not care. For the first time in years, he felt like he belonged somewhere, not because of status or wealth, but because of shared humanity. The family had welcomed him without expectation, without prejudice, offering something he had longed for but never sought: unconditional inclusion. As dessert plates were cleared, the little girl leaned in and asked about his Christmas plans. He paused, realizing he had none, and admitted that he usually spent holidays alone. Her eyes widened slightly, not in judgment, but in determination to change that. She squeezed his hand and reminded him that he was part of their Christmas now, that he could experience warmth and joy if he let himself. The CEO looked around the table, at the mother's gentle smile, the father's quiet support, and the girl's unwavering kindness. He felt gratitude, not for a business opportunity or a social connection, but for being allowed to experience something real, something pure. His chest felt lighter, his thoughts quieter, and he understood. Perhaps for the first time in decades, that connection mattered more than ambition, that kindness mattered more than transactions, that love mattered more than power. He shared a small story about his own childhood Christmas, about a simple tradition of decorating a tree with handmade ornaments and sharing a modest meal with his family. The little girl listened intently, her eyes wide, her head tilted in curiosity. She asked questions, wanting to know everything, and he answered with a newfound ease, realizing that sharing these memories did not make him weak. It made him human. Time passed almost unnoticed. The restaurant slowly emptied as the evening wore on, leaving a quieter space around them. Yet the warmth at the table remained, a bubble of comfort and joy. The CEO felt a sense of peace he had not known in years. He had entered the restaurant alone, expecting nothing but solitude, and yet he had found laughter, acceptance, and the simple magic of human connection. As the night came to an end, the little girl stood on her chair and hugged him tightly. He felt a surge of emotion he could not suppress, a mixture of gratitude, surprise, and joy. Her family smiled, acknowledging the bond that had formed in a few short hours, and he realized that these were the moments that truly mattered, the moments that gave life meaning beyond success and wealth. He left the restaurant that night with a lightness in his step he had not felt in decades. The snow outside sparkled under the streetlights, and for the first time in years the cold did not feel biting. It felt invigorating. He carried with him not just memories of a shared meal, but a renewed understanding that human connection, simple gestures of kindness, and the courage of a little girl could change the course of a life forever. The next day, he could not stop thinking about the previous evening. The memory of the little girl's smile, the warmth of her family, and the laughter they had shared stayed with him. For the first time in years, he felt a tug in his heart, a desire to experience more than work and solitude. As he sat in his office overlooking the city, he realized that his life had been a series of achievements, each one higher than the last, yet none of them brought him the satisfaction he had imagined. He had measured success in numbers, in deals, in influence, but now he saw that what he had been missing was simple human connection. He replayed every moment of the dinner in his mind, the little girl tugging his hand, the mother's gentle smile, the father's quiet encouragement. He remembered the way she had offered him the drawing and asked him to join them without hesitation or fear. The purity of her gesture struck him deeply. It was not a request born of obligation, nor was it a manipulation to gain something. It was simple, honest kindness, and it had left an impression stronger than any boardroom victory ever could. Unable to focus on his usual tasks, he decided to take a walk through the city streets. The snow had stopped falling, leaving a quiet, clean layer over the pavements and streets. The cold air bit gently at his face, but he welcomed it, feeling that it reminded him that he was still alive, that life had more to offer than work and wealth. He passed families and friends walking together, carrying shopping bags, laughing at small jokes, and he found himself smiling quietly at the sight. It was no longer a reminder of what he lacked. It was a vision of what could still be experienced if he allowed himself to open his heart. As he wandered, he thought about his own family. He had parents and siblings, yet they had long grown distant. Visits were few and short, often filled with formalities rather than warmth. The little girl and her family had reminded him of something he had neglected: the importance of nurturing relationships, of being present, of sharing moments without expecting anything in return. He realized that he had been living in a self-made prison of success and isolation, where achievements were celebrated but joy was scarce. He stopped in a small park, looking at the children playing in the remaining snow, throwing snowballs and building small forts. Their laughter was infectious, and he felt a strange, almost childlike urge to join them. It had been so long since he had felt carefree, so long since he had laughed without reservation or purpose. Memories of his own childhood came rushing back, days spent in the snow, afternoons with friends building forts and making small games out of everything. Those memories had been buried under years of responsibility and ambition, but now they resurfaced with clarity and warmth. He thought about the little girl again, about how she had seen him not as a CEO, not as a distant figure of success, but simply as another human being deserving of kindness and inclusion. Her confidence, her innocence, and her generosity had pierced the wall he had built around himself. For the first time, he understood that it was not wealth or power that gave life meaning. It was connection, kindness, and shared experiences. When he returned to his office, he made a quiet decision. He would not let this experience fade like so many others. He would reach out not for personal gain, not for obligation, but for the chance to experience more moments of genuine connection. He drafted a message to the little girl's family, thanking them for their kindness and expressing a desire to see them again. He hesitated before sending it, unsure if they would welcome further contact, but he finally pressed send, trusting in the goodness that had already touched his life. The rest of the day passed slowly. He found it difficult to concentrate, but in a different way than before. His mind was not preoccupied with stress or deadlines, it was preoccupied with possibility. He imagined future meetings, future conversations, and the potential for forming bonds that were not transactional but authentic. He realized that he had lived so long in a world where value was measured by output and efficiency, that he had forgotten the simplest measures of life: love, joy, and human connection. That evening, he received a reply from the little girl's mother. They were delighted to hear from him and invited him to join them for a small gathering on the following weekend. He felt a rush of gratitude and excitement, emotions that he had almost forgotten existed. The thought of spending time with people who genuinely welcomed him, without expectation or pretense, filled him with anticipation. Over the next few days, he prepared for the gathering in ways that went beyond choosing an appropriate gift or outfit. He reflected on how he would interact with the family, how he could be present and engaged rather than distant and reserved. He realized that this was an opportunity not just for companionship, but for transformation. It was a chance to reconnect with parts of himself that had been neglected for years, parts that longed for warmth, laughter, and simple joy. When the day of the gathering arrived, he found himself nervous in a way he had not been in years. He dressed carefully, choosing something that felt approachable rather than authoritative. He left his office early, taking time to walk through the quiet city streets, observing the soft light of the afternoon and the remnants of snow that had fallen during the week. The world seemed quieter, gentler, almost as if it too was acknowledging the possibility of change. He arrived at the family's home, a cozy, modest place filled with the smell of baked goods and the soft hum of music. The little girl ran to the door, her face lighting up at the sight of him, and he felt a wave of warmth and happiness. Her parents welcomed him again, their smiles sincere, their hospitality genuine. He was led inside, offered a seat, and immediately made to feel at ease. The gathering began simply with conversation, laughter, and small shared activities. The little girl insisted he help decorate a small tree, placing ornaments with care and asking for his input. He found himself giving suggestions, laughing at small mishaps, and enjoying the playful spirit that filled the room. It was unlike any gathering he had attended in years. There was no pretense, no ambition, no expectation, only connection. He watched the little girl interact with her parents, her curiosity and joy evident in every action. He realized that these moments were more valuable than any deal or contract he had ever signed. The simplicity of their lives, the focus on relationships rather than achievements, was a lesson he had long forgotten. Each laugh, each story shared, each gesture of kindness reminded him of what truly mattered. The evening continued with a small meal, modest but filled with care. He ate slowly, savoring the flavors and the company, feeling a sense of contentment that he had never known at his own lavish dinners. The conversation flowed naturally, and he found himself sharing memories, listening intently and laughing freely. He was not the CEO in this room. He was simply a guest, welcomed and accepted, experiencing something far richer than professional success could provide. As the night came to a close, the little girl hugged him tightly, whispering a simple, heartfelt thank you. He felt a surge of emotion, realizing that he had been changed by this encounter. The loneliness that had defined his holidays and much of his life felt lighter, more manageable, and for the first time he believed that change was possible. He left the house with a quiet sense of peace, carrying with him the memory of warmth, kindness, and human connection that had touched him so deeply. After that night, he began to notice subtle changes within himself. The warmth he had felt with the little girl and her family lingered longer than he expected. It was as if a small spark had been lit in his heart, a spark that reminded him of things he had long ignored: friendship, laughter, kindness, and connection. Every day he found himself looking at people differently, noticing gestures of care that he would have overlooked before. When a colleague offered a simple compliment, or when a stranger held a door open, he felt gratitude in a way he hadn't felt in years. He decided to take small steps to bring more of these moments into his life. He began by reaching out to old friends he had lost touch with, sending messages simply asking how they were, without any hidden agenda. Some responses were quick and enthusiastic, others hesitant, but every reply reminded him that relationships, even if long dormant, could be rekindled with care. It was not easy, and at times he felt awkward, unused to vulnerability, but the feeling of connection that followed was worth every moment of discomfort. The little girl's family became an important part of his renewed life. He visited them regularly, joining in small dinners, helping with minor chores, and participating in their simple traditions. Each visit taught him something new, not just about them, but about himself. He learned to listen without judgment, to offer help without expecting anything in return, to laugh freely, and to appreciate the beauty of simple, everyday moments. He realized that he had spent so long in pursuit of success that he had missed the true richness of life. One evening, as they sat together decorating a small Christmas tree, the little girl asked him to tell stories about his own holidays from when he was a child. He hesitated at first, unsure if his memories would interest anyone, but he began to speak. He told them about the games he used to play, the decorations his family made, the small gifts exchanged, and the warmth of family gatherings. As he spoke, he noticed the family listening intently, smiling, asking questions, and encouraging him to continue. It was the first time in decades that he had felt his past welcomed, appreciated, and valued. The little girl listened with wide eyes, her curiosity infectious. She asked questions about why certain traditions were special and what he had enjoyed most. Her parents laughed softly at her questions, appreciating the simplicity and honesty behind them. He felt himself relaxing completely, realizing that in this environment there was no need for appearances, no need to impress, no need to protect himself with walls. He could simply be human. The CEO also began to see the world outside his own experiences with new clarity. He noticed how people interacted, how small acts of kindness could ripple outward in ways that were easy to overlook. When a neighbor helped carry groceries, when a stranger smiled on the street, or when a colleague offered support, he felt a deep appreciation. These small moments, previously dismissed as insignificant, now carried weight and meaning. He understood that connection was built not just in grand gestures but in everyday actions, repeated with care and intention. As the holiday season approached, he made a quiet decision to host a small dinner of his own, inviting friends, colleagues, and the little girl's family. It was not about display or prestige, but about creating space for people to come together, to share food, laughter, and stories. He took care to plan thoughtfully, ensuring that everyone would feel welcome, that each detail was infused with warmth and consideration. He wanted to offer what he had received, the feeling of being included, valued, and connected. The night of the dinner arrived, and he felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The house was modest but cozy, decorated with care, lights twinkling softly, candles flickering on the table. The little girl ran ahead, helping with small tasks, her enthusiasm filling the space with energy and joy. Her parents smiled at him warmly, acknowledging the effort he had made, appreciating the invitation without expectation. As guests arrived, he felt a new sense of presence and responsibility, not as a leader of a corporation, but as a host creating a space for connection. Conversations flowed naturally around the table, laughter punctuating stories, questions leading to shared memories, and small gestures of kindness reinforcing the bonds forming. He found himself listening deeply, engaging fully, appreciating not just the content of interactions but the feelings behind them. Every smile, every nod, every word of encouragement became a thread weaving a tapestry of human connection that he had long neglected. The little girl continued to be a guiding light, her curiosity and warmth setting the tone for the evening. She moved between conversations, ensuring that everyone felt included, reminding him of the power of innocence and generosity. Her actions were simple yet profound. A question asked with interest, a story shared with enthusiasm, a hand offered to someone feeling left out. Each moment was a lesson in the art of human connection, a reminder that warmth and attention could transform a room. As the evening progressed, he noticed subtle changes in himself. He was less concerned with appearances, less focused on control, and more present in the shared experiences of the moment. He laughed freely, offered stories from his own life, and felt genuine joy in the interactions around him. The barriers he had built over decades seemed to dissolve, replaced with a sense of openness and trust that he had long thought impossible. By the end of the night, guests were leaving, exchanging hugs and words of gratitude. The little girl hugged him tightly, whispering a heartfelt thank you. He felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of happiness, relief, and contentment. For the first time in many years, he understood what it meant to belong, to be seen not for achievements or status, but for simply being human. The loneliness that had shadowed his life began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of connection, purpose, and joy. After everyone had left, he sat quietly in the now empty house, reflecting on the evening. He realized that transformation was not about grand gestures or monumental changes, but about small, consistent steps toward connection and openness. He had spent years chasing success, thinking it would bring fulfillment, and had discovered that true satisfaction lay in relationships, empathy, and shared experiences. The little girl's simple invitation had set in motion a chain of change, reminding him that kindness, openness, and human connection could reshape a life. As he prepared for bed that night, he felt a sense of peace and anticipation. The future seemed less daunting, filled with possibilities for growth, warmth, and connection. He understood that this was only the beginning, that life could be richer, fuller, and more meaningful if he continued to embrace these lessons. The spark ignited by the little girl's gesture had grown into a steady flame, illuminating a path toward a life he had longed for but had never allowed himself to pursue. The following Christmas, he felt a sense of excitement he had never experienced before. The holiday, which once brought only quiet solitude and reflection on loneliness, now held the promise of joy, connection, and shared experiences. He had learned that life was not about wealth or status but about moments of kindness, presence, and human connection. This realization shaped every action he took that day. He woke early, the soft light of the winter morning streaming through his window. The streets outside were quiet, dusted with fresh snow that glistened under the pale sun. He dressed carefully, choosing clothing that was warm and comfortable rather than formal, reflecting a shift in his priorities from appearances to presence. He thought about the little girl and her family, the lessons they had taught him and the warmth they had brought into his life. There was an eagerness within him, a desire to continue nurturing the connections that had begun to bloom. As he walked to the restaurant where they would meet, he observed the city with a renewed perspective. He noticed the small details he had previously overlooked, the soft glow of streetlights on snow-covered sidewalks, the laughter of children playing outside, the gentle greetings of neighbors passing by. Each moment seemed infused with potential for connection, a reminder that joy could be found in the simplest interactions. The world felt larger yet more intimate, a place where he could belong rather than merely observe. Upon arriving at the restaurant, he saw the little girl waiting, her eyes bright with anticipation. She ran to him and without hesitation threw her arms around his waist in a hug. The parents followed, their smiles warm and welcoming, embodying the generosity and care that had first drawn him into their lives. He felt a surge of gratitude, realizing that this moment represented the culmination of months of subtle transformation, a shift from isolation to inclusion, from detachment to engagement. They were seated at a cozy table near the fireplace, where the crackling flames added a comforting warmth to the room. The little girl eagerly began sharing stories of the past year, her laughter and excitement filling the space. He listened intently, responding with questions, observations, and anecdotes from his own experiences. Conversation flowed effortlessly, a mixture of joy, curiosity, and gentle humor. He was no longer an outsider merely watching. He was a participant, fully engaged, his presence welcomed and valued. The meal was simple yet satisfying, prepared with care and shared with intention. They passed dishes around, laughing at minor mishaps and celebrating small victories in cooking and presentation. The CEO found himself savoring not only the food but the atmosphere, the smiles, the warmth, the sense of belonging that had eluded him for so long. Each bite reinforced the understanding that connection, not luxury, was the true sustenance of life. Throughout the evening, he observed the little girl's interactions with her parents. Her curiosity, generosity, and attentiveness set the tone for the gathering, inspiring him to be more open, kind, and present. He realized that children often see the world with clarity and honesty, unburdened by pretense, and that he could learn from their example. Her influence was subtle but profound, guiding him toward a more authentic way of being. They shared stories, memories, and dreams. The CEO recounted holidays from his childhood, experiences that he had long buried under years of work and ambition. He spoke of snowball fights, homemade decorations, small gifts exchanged with care, and the warmth of family gatherings. The little girl listened with rapt attention, asking questions, offering insights, and encouraging him to continue. Her parents smiled, appreciating the depth of connection forming at the table. As the evening wore on, they engaged in small activities such as decorating gingerbread cookies and placing ornaments on a miniature tree. The CEO participated fully, laughing at his own mistakes, appreciating the shared effort and feeling a sense of joy that was both new and familiar. The simple acts of collaboration, play, and attention created bonds that transcended age, status, and past experiences. He understood that these moments were transformative, shaping not only his perception of life but his sense of self. Toward the end of the evening, the little girl presented him with a small handmade gift, a token of appreciation for his presence in their lives. It was simple, a paper ornament with a hand-drawn star, but it carried immense significance. He accepted it with gratitude, recognizing the thought, care, and love embedded within. The gesture symbolized the culmination of months of growth, the realization that relationships built on kindness, trust, and attention could bring profound meaning. The CEO reflected on the journey that had led him to this point. He had entered the holiday season expecting solitude, yet he had found warmth, connection, and a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that human relationships were not to be managed, controlled, or measured by success, but nurtured, valued, and cherished. The little girl's simple invitation months ago had sparked a transformation that reshaped his life in ways he could not have imagined. He left the restaurant that night feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. The snow-covered streets seemed less cold, the city less distant, and the world more inviting. He had experienced the power of kindness, the beauty of connection, and the joy of presence. For the first time in decades, he understood that life's true richness lay not in achievements or wealth, but in shared experiences, compassion, and love. As he returned home, he resolved to continue cultivating these values, to remain open, present, and generous in his interactions. He understood that transformation was ongoing, requiring effort, attention, and a willingness to embrace vulnerability. Yet he felt ready, confident that he could sustain the changes sparked by the little girl's innocence and the family's warmth. The holiday season continued with a new rhythm for him. He reached out to friends and family, hosted gatherings, and participated in community activities, always guided by the lessons of kindness, inclusion, and presence. Each interaction reinforced the understanding that human connection was the most valuable gift one could give or receive. In the months and years that followed, the little girl's family remained an integral part of his life. They celebrated holidays together, shared meals, exchanged stories, and supported one another in times of need. The CEO, once isolated and consumed by ambition, became a man defined not only by success but by empathy, generosity, and genuine connection. The simple act of a child's invitation had reshaped his perspective, teaching him that life's greatest rewards come from love, attention, and shared humanity. The story of that Christmas, once marked by loneliness, became a turning point in his life. It reminded him that even the smallest gestures, a smile, a question, an invitation, can ignite transformation. It showed him that it is never too late to change, to grow, and to embrace the richness of human connection. The CEO learned that true fulfillment comes not from wealth, power, or recognition, but from the relationships we nurture, the moments we share, and the kindness we offer freely. Years later, he would look back on that Christmas with gratitude and wonder. The memory of the little girl's bright eyes and innocent invitation remained vivid, a symbol of hope and possibility. He understood that the impact of kindness is immeasurable, that a single act can ripple outward, changing lives in unexpected ways. His life, once defined by solitude and ambition, had been transformed by connection, and he carried that lesson forward in every interaction, every gesture, and every choice. That Christmas had shown him that the heart's true home is found in the bonds we create, the care we give, and the love we share. The little girl had unknowingly gifted him the most precious treasure, a life enriched by human connection, laughter, and the warmth of shared experience. He embraced that gift fully, carrying it with him always, a guiding light illuminating the path to a life of joy, purpose, and belonging. The following year, the CEO woke up on Christmas morning with a sense of anticipation and warmth he had never known before. He no longer saw the day as a reminder of loneliness or emptiness. Instead, it was an opportunity to connect, to share, and to celebrate life with people who had become an integral part of his journey. The little girl, now older by a year, had grown even more confident and kind, her presence a bright light that touched everyone around her. He dressed with care but simplicity, choosing clothes that reflected comfort and approachability rather than status or power. He looked around his home, noticing small touches he had added since the previous year. Candles, small decorations, and a tree adorned with ornaments collected from trips and gifts over the years. Each item held meaning, a reminder that the focus of the holiday was presence and attention, not extravagance. The streets were quiet, the snow freshly fallen, softening the edges of the city. As he walked to meet the little girl and her family, he observed the world with a calm appreciation. Children played in the snow, neighbors greeted each other warmly, and the air carried the subtle scent of winter fires and baked goods. Everything seemed more alive, more connected, and he felt a deep gratitude for being able to experience it fully. When he arrived at the restaurant where they had agreed to meet, the little girl was already waiting, her eyes bright and sparkling with excitement. She ran toward him, and he bent down slightly to hug her, feeling the warmth and energy of her presence. Her parents followed, welcoming him with genuine smiles, their affection and trust reinforcing the bond that had formed over the past year. The scene was simple yet profoundly moving, a testament to the power of human connection and kindness. They were seated at a cozy table near the fireplace, the flames casting a soft glow over the room. The little girl immediately began sharing stories of her year, her achievements, her small challenges, and the adventures she had experienced. He listened intently, asking questions and responding with encouragement, finding joy in the way her curiosity and innocence illuminated the conversation. Her parents smiled quietly, allowing her to take the lead while appreciating the CEO's genuine engagement. The meal was shared with laughter, gentle teasing, and playful conversation. The CEO found himself participating fully, savoring not just the food but the atmosphere, the stories, and the laughter. Each moment reinforced the understanding that joy was found in shared experiences, in attention and presence, not in material wealth or status. He was present, engaged, and fully alive in a way that he had not been for decades. Throughout the evening, they engaged in small, meaningful activities. They decorated cookies, created simple ornaments for the tree, and shared stories of past holidays. The CEO participated eagerly, laughing at his own mistakes and celebrating the small victories alongside the little girl and her family. These activities, though ordinary, were infused with care and attention, transforming them into moments of deep connection and meaning. He noticed the subtle ways in which the little girl guided interactions, encouraging inclusivity, curiosity, and kindness. Her influence was gentle yet profound, reminding him that true leadership and presence come from empathy and attentiveness, rather than authority or control. Her questions, observations, and simple acts of generosity shaped the tone of the evening, creating an environment where everyone felt valued and included. As the evening progressed, conversation deepened. They discussed hopes, dreams, and the lessons learned over the past year. The CEO shared memories from his own childhood, including stories of holidays spent with family, the games he had played, and the traditions he had cherished. The little girl listened with rapt attention, asking thoughtful questions and offering insights. Her parents joined in, creating a tapestry of shared experiences that bridged generations and backgrounds. The CEO realized that his understanding of connection and fulfillment had deepened significantly over the past year. He had learned that life's richness is not measured by wealth, success, or power, but by the quality of the relationships we cultivate, the attention we give to others, and the moments of shared joy and empathy. The little girl and her family had become his teachers, guiding him toward a life that was more meaningful, compassionate, and fully lived. Toward the end of the evening, the little girl presented him with a small, handmade gift, a paper ornament with a message of gratitude and love. He accepted it with humility and appreciation, recognizing the depth of care behind the gesture. It symbolized the ongoing transformation in his life, a reminder that kindness, attention, and connection could reshape even the most solitary heart. The CEO reflected on his journey as he left the restaurant. The snow-covered streets sparkled under the soft glow of streetlights, and the city felt alive with possibility. He realized that the loneliness he had once accepted as permanent was now a memory, replaced by a growing network of meaningful relationships, warmth, and shared experiences. The lessons he had learned over the past year were deeply ingrained, shaping not only his holidays but his daily life. In the months that followed, he continued to nurture these connections. He spent more time with friends and family, hosted gatherings, volunteered in his community, and remained attentive to the small gestures of kindness that made life richer. Each interaction reinforced the understanding that human connection is the foundation of true fulfillment, and that generosity, empathy, and presence are the most valuable gifts one can offer. Years later, he would look back on that first Christmas with gratitude and wonder. The memory of the little girl's simple invitation, the warmth of her family, and the shared moments of joy had transformed him profoundly. He understood that even small acts of kindness can ignite change, that connection and empathy are powerful forces, and that the heart's true home is found in the bonds we create, the attention we give, and the love we share. The CEO's life had been forever changed by the simple act of a child reaching out with an open heart. What began as a lonely holiday had blossomed into a life rich with warmth, connection, and purpose. The lessons he had learned, the importance of presence, kindness, and shared humanity, remained guiding principles, illuminating every choice and interaction. The little girl had shown him that transformation is possible at any age, and that the heart's capacity for joy and connection is limitless when nurtured with care and love. The following winter, the CEO found himself eagerly awaiting the holiday season in a way he never had before. Each morning, as he walked through the city streets dusted with fresh snow, he noticed the small signs of life and connection, the laughter of children, the warmth of neighbors greeting each other, the subtle decorations that people had placed in their homes. These everyday sights, once overlooked, now brought him genuine joy, reinforcing the lessons he had learned over the past years. That connection, kindness, and attention to others were the truest sources of happiness. He arrived at the little girl's home earlier than planned. Wanting to spend time helping with preparations, she greeted him with her usual radiant smile, running up to hug him before he had even stepped inside. Her parents followed, welcoming him warmly and including him in the hustle and bustle of holiday preparations. From the very beginning, he felt a sense of belonging that had been absent from his life for decades. The warmth in the home was palpable, created not by expensive decorations or grand gestures, but by the simple acts of care, attention, and love that flowed naturally between its members. Together, they worked on decorating the house, stringing lights, placing ornaments, and preparing small gifts for neighbors and friends. The little girl led the activities with infectious enthusiasm, showing him the best way to hang ornaments or arrange garlands. Her joy was sincere and unforced, a reminder that the best kind of leadership comes from nurturing, guiding, and inspiring others with kindness rather than authority. The CEO found himself laughing freely, enjoying each moment without concern for appearances or perfection. As they worked, conversations flowed effortlessly. The little girl shared stories of her friends, school projects, and small adventures, while her parents contributed with gentle humor and quiet guidance. The CEO, in turn, shared stories from his own childhood and work life, carefully selecting anecdotes that were relatable and filled with lessons about perseverance, curiosity, and empathy. Unlike in corporate meetings or social gatherings focused on status, here his stories were received with genuine interest and warmth. He felt seen, not as a CEO or a public figure, but as a human being capable of connection and learning.